Welcome, Gunrunner.
Hello everybody, Retro Laird aka Kieran here, back with another review for you all, a system review. Now I haven't done a system review for a little while. I think the last one I did was Neo Geo X just after Christmas. So I thought it was due for another one, and I'm going to continue a theme that I've had on my channel of doing quite a lot of reviews on handhelds as well as the Neo Geo X, which is kind of a handheld. I also did the Lynx, the Game Gear, and the Mega Drive portable as well, which has been a hugely popular video. In fact, those videos that I've done are among the most popular videos on my channel. So I thought, why not continue with that theme? So what I've actually got is for review today something that's going to be pretty familiar to everybody out there who with any interest in retro gaming, and that is the Nintendo Game Boy. Now, this is the original model, and this is a somewhat battered, bruised, scratched old one that somebody gave me a little while ago. The screen's in pretty poor shape, it's pretty badly scratched. You probably can't see that on the camera, but you might be able to see a little bit. What actually it looks like it happens is at some point that screen had come off, it had come loose or something like that. And although maybe they dropped it and it came off, and it's been glued back on, and you can clearly see that it's been glued back on because it's been done really badly. But I can't complain because, as I say, somebody I know, it was actually a girl, I'll say that now as well, found this amongst their stuff. It was theirs from when they were a kid, and they said, "Do you want it?" So I said, "Well, yeah, why not? I'll take it." But I'm pretty familiar with the Game Boy anyway. I'll tell you my own story. I know, probably most people who watch my channel know I'm probably the biggest Atari Lynx fan out there, and that was my handheld of choice back in the day. Probably about 6 months or so after I got my Lynx, my younger brother got a Game Boy because I was already quite familiar with the machine anyway, as you can imagine. When I got my Lynx, I'd considered all the handhelds, and I did have a few friends at school who had got Game Boys, actually on import. They'd actually bought import models. They bought, so there was a couple of people at my school that had one. I'm quite familiar with it, and it seemed like a decent little machine. I just didn't like the fact it had a black and white screen, and I wanted something in colour. So my brother wasn't too bothered about that. He had tried one out. I think one of his friends had one, and he quite liked it. So he wanted a handheld as well because I already had the Lynx. He couldn't decide between the Lynx and the Game Gear, and in the end he went with the Game Boy. The Lynx and Game Gear. He couldn't decide between the Game Boy and the Game Gear, but he went with the Game Boy. I can't remember the exact reasons why, to be honest, but I think it was because it had lots of platformers on it. My brother always quite liked platform games. That could have been one of the main reasons behind it. But yeah, the Game Boy. So the original model, it seems quite big now to a lot of people, but back then it was tiny. I mean, it's a lot smaller than the Lynx and the Game Gear. And if you want to see actually a comparison between them, go and watch the Lynx review that's on my channel, the Atari Lynx, and in the very beginning part, I get the Lynx 1, the Lynx 2 and the Game Gear, and I show you them all side by side and the size differences and stuff like that. So it's a pretty hefty thing. People call it a brick, and they're kind of not wrong in a way because it's quite heavy. As most people know, it takes 4 AA batteries, which lasts ages, especially modern batteries. I've got Duracell rechargeables in this at the moment. These are brilliant. I mean, these last so much longer than the other rechargeables. They last longer than the old rechargeables did back in the day, which weren't particularly good. I can remember getting about 2 hours at best out of them on my Lynx. They were rubbish. But modern day rechargeables are great. You probably know what you got with the Game Gear. You got the classic D-pad. You got the 2 buttons, start and select as well. Little speaker. You've got your contrast on one side along with your AC adapter, which not many people use because the battery life was so good anyway. Headphone socket for stereo sound on the bottom. On-off switch on the top. Cartridge slot. That side volume, and the links, you can link 2 Game Boys together, which was great for Tetris. I remember playing Link Up Tetris at school on my friends' Game Boys very well. Great fun. Probably, still one of the best handheld games ever made is Game Boy Tetris. It was just perfect in every way, really, apart from the lack of colour. But that's it, really. I've got quite a few games knocking around as well. Game cartridges like that, which I'm sure you'll know. That's Chase HQ. They had a little notch in the top on one side, so when you put them in, the switch locks them in place so you can't actually pull them out when the machine's on, which is, I suppose, quite cool. There we go, playing away. The speaker and stuff still seems to work quite good. Although the screen is very, very scratched, there isn't any dead pixels or anything, and the contrast and everything seems to still work okay. So it's I don't think it was ever used that much. I think it was probably just dropped and that paddle fell off the front, and then someone did a rather bad job of putting it back on, basically. So I'm going to cut out in a minute, and I'm going to try, and I use the word try, and get some decent video of what the Game Boy looks like, and then talk a little bit more about how it fares against its rivals and how it fares today against sort of history more than anything. It might be difficult. Anyone who has watched any of Ashen's videos, who's probably my favourite YouTube reviewer, will know that he struggles a lot trying to get decent pictures from handhelds, and you'll also know that I struggled in previous reviews, especially the Neo Geo X1, which was quite a pain. So we'll see how we go anyway, and I'll see you all in a minute. Okay, so I'm back again. I've ummed and ahed with a few ways of doing this, but I think this is actually going to be the best way, is to literally hold it in front of this camera like this. I'll try moving that a little bit there. No, that doesn't help much. It's just trying to get that light reflection off the screen that seems to be there. Hopefully it keeps the focus not too bad. You can see actually now how badly that screen is scratched, and the damage that's there from the glue, but hopefully it won't be so bad when I turn it on. I had to hope the autofocus behaves itself. And of course now that's what happens when it doesn't like the game. You just get this corrupted image. And of course it worked perfectly a moment ago. So there we go. So the games always start by booting with this Nintendo logo, just to contrast a little bit. I don't know if that helps. Turn it down a little bit as well, actually. So this is Trace HQ. The Game Boy got a lot of arcade conversions and a lot of stuff as well. I think a lot of people sort of didn't really think was possible, I suppose, with such a limited machine. I suppose it was a bit like the Spectrum in that respect. I'll come on focus, trying to get a really decent image of it. Now it just doesn't want to focus. I shouldn't have messed around with where I had it positioned. So let's press start. A turbo, B shift up accelerate. No, I think we'll play control 2 with B to accelerate. A to shift, that's better, isn't it? Start. I wonder how Trace HQ works. Not a bad conversion is from what I remember. Better if I don't crash into stuff. I'm trying to adjust the contrast. It's quite hard to see through the viewfinder as well. Okay, this is Trace HQ. I'm going to play it for too long. It's quite hard to play through the viewfinder, especially with the scratched screen and the light reflecting off it. But I think the thing that straight away you notice about the Game Boy now, especially, is obviously a prevalent thing back then, but I think it's something you notice more today, is just how awful this flipping screen is anyway. I know that it's not scratched, but trying to get the contrast right, trying to be able to see it in a decent light. Just the fact that it's monochrome, I just never liked the Game Boy screen. It's quite a high resolution, I'll give it that, but I just never liked it. Sound wise, the speaker is very tinny, but then I suppose you expect that it's just a tiny little thing in the corner, but the Game Boy did have pretty decent sound capabilities. There's a lot of good music on the Game Boy. Actually stuff like Double Dragon. Which I still actually I've got the Game Boy version of Double Dragon on my 3DS, which I play quite a lot because I still like that a lot. The game that brother had back in the day, and I enjoyed it immensely. So yeah, I think this was the biggest downfall of the Game Boy was the screen, but it's what gave the Game Boy brilliant battery life. So, you know, what do you expect? So I'm going to turn that off for a minute, stick something else in. What else have I got here? Let's stick that there for a minute. I'm going to put it down. Seems to be focusing better now as well, so that's always good. Right, let's hope this is working first time. This is probably one of the Game Boy's more famous games. I have to confess it's a game that I cannot stand, but most people love Super Mario Land. I'm rubbish at it and I hate it. So I'll say that right now. I don't make a secret of that. I generally loathe platform games anyway. But I have to say that out of those Mario games, I really don't like the look, style, anything probably about them. Controversial opinion because most people love Mario. I don't. I can't think of any game, to be honest, that I'd rather play less than a Mario game most of the time. There we go. Which is actually probably quite good for me, how well I'm doing here. So, I've messed that up, haven't I? So yeah, the Game Boy compared to its rivals, I mean, obviously, we all know it won. It won the handheld war. It beat out the Lynx and Game Gear by quite a substantial margin. And that was down to a lot of factors. One was the price, it was the cheapest at the start. The Lynx and Game Gear came down in price later. The Lynx especially, which ended up being less than half the price it originally retailed at. I didn't even see that. That's good. So the price is a big factor. Battery life. Now that is obviously, I feel, is the biggest thing of all. I think that is the main thing that let the Game Boy win, because everyone moaned about the battery life of the Lynx and Game Gear. You were getting, 4 or 5 hours out of the Lynx, 6 hours maybe on a Lynx 2 at most, with a set of really good batteries. The Game Gear, you were getting 3, 4 if you were lucky, which is even worse. So I never understood, I've said in videos before, because the Game Gear was a lot less powerful machine, but I guess it's how it's engineered. And with the Game Boy, you could put batteries in and they'd last for days, basically. So that was a really big factor. But the other thing I think you obviously can't underestimate as well is that Nintendo had the IP. I mean, they had Mario, they had Donkey Kong, Zelda, they had all those kinds of games, and I suppose they were the games that a lot of people wanted to play. And I think another factor in that was that they had the kids market, because those are the games kids wanted to play, and kids wanted handheld games. They could sit in the back of the car and it kept them quiet, and that appealed to parents as well. So I think that was another big element in the Game Boy's success, and I think something that maybe people don't focus on enough when it comes to the machine. And there we go. I've actually done a level. I'm actually quite proud of myself for doing a level. As sad as that sounds. Game I haven't played in years, and I'm generally rubbish at platforms. It's even worse when I have to look at it through a rubbish screen as well. So there we go. I think that's enough of Mario for now. Let's put in something else. So yeah, there's a lot of people who nowadays say they can't play the Game Boy at all because they just can't cope with the screen, and I think in a way it's a fair comment because the screen is quite hard to deal with at times, but I don't think it's as bad as some people make out. I mean, I'm not a fan because I'd much prefer have a nice colour backlit LCD screen like the Lynx has. The Lynx screen is gorgeous, but you know, the Game Gear one less so, but it's really not that bad. This was a game actually my brother had back in the day, was Escape from Camp Deadly, so it brings back a lot of memories. I seem to remember it has digitised speech, but the Game Boy has to stop the action to do the speech, which always sounds quite funny. What you do in it, I just can't remember. Oh yeah, eat my shorts. Some really poor quality speech. Yeah, this game is incredibly hard to see with a viewfinder. Ay caramba. There's me dead already. So, yep. What else have I got here? I'll have a look. Yeah, overall, the Game Boy, I think, still holds up quite well. And I think the main reason it still holds up quite well is because it does have, you know, an outstanding library of games, and I don't think anyone can really say it doesn't. You know, there's no denying that it had the best games of all the handhelds at the time. No, nothing else came close, and that library isn't diminished today, and that's still a fantastic library of games. It's whether it has the games you want to play. I mean, I always liked the games in the Lynx because the Lynx had a lot of very good arcade conversions. Which the Game Boy, though, does have arcade conversions. Most of them have been, obviously, had to have changes made to be able to cope with the hardware. It's Terminator 2. So, and actually doing this, I can't really see it well enough through the thing, I have to say. Actually, I can't see it well at all. I mean, yeah, I preferred the Lynx, but I'd probably still have the Game Boy over the Game Gear any day, mainly because I just find the Game Gear screen atrocious. It's just horrible, even though it's colour, it's just awful. It just blurs all over the place, and you know, just looks generally awful. And the Game Gear, I don't think it's got the most inspiring library either. At the end of the day, it's just a portable Master System, and I'd rather play most of its games on a Master System. So. The Game Boy does have a fair amount of blur on its screen, but I don't think as bad as, again, some people make out that it's really bad, and I don't think it actually is really bad. I'm not sure if I died or completed the level there. I died. So, Terminator 2, never played that before, I have to admit. I just found it in the box with the games I was given, and yeah, I've never tried it before. So I suppose getting time to wrap up the review. From a collector's standpoint, the original Game Boy is easy to find. Games are easy to find, and you can get them cheaply. Still has it has decent battery life. It's still pretty portable. I'm putting Tetris on to finish this, so I don't think you can do anything. You know, talk about the Game Boy if you're not playing Tetris at some point on it. So, still amazingly good. I actually hope I want to do a review of a system called the Sistema 2000, also known as the Hard-On Game Master scene. And that was one of the Game Boy rip-offs that featured a monochrome screen, like the Cheetah Game Mate and the best name ever still for a handheld Game Mate. And the Watara Supervision, otherwise known as Quickshot Supervision, stuff like that, you know. There are a lot of systems that tried to cash in on the success of the Game Boy and failed miserably. No one ever really did it. I don't think that well until probably the PSP came along, and the PSP wasn't as big a success as Sony would have hoped. Nintendo have continued to rule the handheld market ever since the Game Boy. Okay, sorry about that. I had to stop momentarily there because there was somebody at my door. I had to get the focus back so it wasn't want to focus again. So yeah, as I was just pretty much just wrapping up. So yeah, the Game Boy is still I feel it's still a good machine. Obviously not as good as the Lynx, but I'm always going to say that. I'm a little bit biased in that respect, but I just think the colour does make a big difference no matter what anyone says. Yeah, it has a great library of games. Still a lot of people collecting it. You can see why so many people are nostalgic about it. And it's a really nice machine. There we go, Tetris just to finish with. Really nice machine with a lot of games. So if you're into retro gaming, if you're into collecting, despite the monochrome screen, the Game Boy really is something you should have in your collection. So I hope you enjoyed this video. A brief little look at the Game Boy. Going to bring some more system reviews soon. I want quite a few more I want to get done, like the Systema 2000 I mentioned earlier, which should certainly be interesting for fans of handhelds because it's quite an obscure machine. And if there's anything in particular you'd like to see on my channel or you'd like to see me review, please let me know in the comments or hit me up on Twitter or Facebook or anywhere else, at RetroLoud on Twitter. I'm in most of the gaming groups on Facebook. So just let me know. I'm always happy to take requests. I'll always do them where and when I can. And so, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all soon. Bye bye.